Okay, right. Hemal, thank you very much for doing this. Joined by Hemal Randerwala, who has agreed to be part of this new series of sort of 15-minute TED-like interviews called The Elevator. People who elevate others and also send the elevator back down to help others achieve. So Hemal, do you want to say a little bit about yourself? Because it hasn't been an easy ride for you. And equally, you're not the first person one would think of when they think about the kind of charitable things you're doing, what you've been doing during COVID, given that, you know, your background is derivatives trader. Why are you just not sitting on a beach making shed loads of money? What's all this helping other people nonsense about?
Well, thank you for having me, Alpesh. Really appreciate you doing this initiative, to reach out to people and maybe give them a bit of inspiration or motivation, or, give them a bit of motivate a bit of heart to be involved in community work as well as do something with their lives and inspire others. So I think it's a really good idea. From my perspective, look, I think as with most of us, we have a lot of motivation to improve our own lives. But probably the fulfillment that you get from that doesn't give you the same feeling of satisfaction as you would get from helping others or from being together. There's only so much you can eat yourself. There's only so much space you can live in without feeling lonely. There's only so much swimming pool you can swim in before, you don't see people around you. So I actually think that, money is only as good as you can use it to help others and to be around other people. So I feel that experience that, people who own ginormous houses and, lock themselves away, I almost feel it's one type of prison that they build for themselves unknowingly. And then, it actually can cause a lot of mental problem and difficulty that they're actually isolating themselves away from people and then losing their social connections. Whereas I think so, for me, it was all about the world of finance or the world of trading or, sitting on a desk. I felt a lack of fulfillment from that, from those activities personally. And I felt, some people might feel deeply inspired by the work they do. I'm sure some of them love to sit on a desk and do nothing else but trade for 14 hours a day, drink Coca-Cola and stare at a screen. Nothing else would come to their mind. Maybe that's their Dharma, so to speak. That's what they've been brought to the world to generate profits and, to utilize that in, the way that they're supposed to. But for me, I felt the activity of buying one, selling twos, buying ones, directly unfulfilling. I felt that I had to do something to directly make a difference. So I was sitting on a trading desk and I was sitting next to two colleagues, and I said to the guy on my right, Tom Griffiths, my friend, I said, look, this is really uninspiring. I think, looking at the situation of farming in the UK and the amount of suffering that's happening, we should do something to try and make a difference in that space. And that's how Go Dharmic was kind of started. So
well,
I think
I'm going to come to Go Dharmic in a second. Did Tom not just turn around and slap you and say, listen, mate, you're here to make money, get trading, be evil, genius?
Well, we did have quite a few debates and arguments over those days. Yeah, I can remember us just sitting down and talking about, whether we should be involved, whether we, why should we do this kind of activity? Why don't we just focus on ourselves? Why don't we just do, what we're currently doing?
Or do it later. Many people make excuses. Were you able to make the jump to Go Dharmic, which, like I said, we'll come to in a second, because you had loads of money? I mean, there's a lot of people saying, well, look, my job's unfulfilling, but how do I make that leap? How do I move across?
No, I think at that stage, I wasn't that successful in what I was doing. I was still a struggling, person trying to make it. So I don't think it's something that you have to wait to do later. If anything that COVID's taught us is that now is the only time we have, right? Like it's this moment, and that is who you are. If you're that person now, then you'll probably be that person later if you don't change it. So, as with fitness or with anything, if it's social awareness and consciousness, I think that we have to live in the present, and we're only lying to ourselves if we think that that we're going to do something else later. It's generating it now.
Now, I want to touch upon this whole theme of this, the whole program, the elevation part. you went to London Met University, which is not the conventional route to getting into the city. So how did you break into the city? Now, you're too modest to say, but you did get a first-class degree in mathematics, which obviously would have helped to get into the city. But still, you know, it wasn't the Oxbridge route. To those people who want to break into the city, albeit part of what you're saying is, listen, guys, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Let's find balance and fulfillment. But if they're looking, you know, the bottom rung of the ladder, they're sort of on the ground floor, let's put it that way, if not the basement. What do you say to them to try and break into those careers, which conventionally they've not been able to access?
Well, I really appreciate you asking that. And it actually wasn't something that I was thinking that we'd be discussing on today's call. But look, I come from Luton. I came from a school called South Luton High School, which is no longer alive. They had to close it for many awful reasons. But, you know, that was the bottom of the ladder. You know, if you look around the country, South Luton High School's previous record, and then, you know, the sixth form college in Luton, we're talking about people whose career options are limited by the socioeconomic area and, you know, the view society has of these communities, whether they're black, ethnic minorities, poorer communities. Luton's a great place for many reasons. I love Luton. But also the opportunities that kids coming from Luton are going to be different from those coming from Oxford or from, you know, so as we went to college, those were the kind of options that were shown to us. So we were almost shown into a different room, if you like it. And that continues as you go down your career path. So when I went into the careers, what's it called, like a careers guidance, or you know, like where the companies come to pitch at the student and tell
careers
you.
Fair, I think.
Careers fair, yeah, like a big careers fair at the London Met University. And I had a good time at London Met. You know, it wasn't a bad place, but I felt that, you know, when I walked into the careers fair, there was the Army, there was Ladbrokes, there was I don't know, these kind of companies. That there's nothing wrong with joining the Army if someone has that as an option. But I wanted to make money. I wanted to become a trader. So in my mind, I just did a thesis on options pricing for my dissertation, and I wanted to get into options trading and trade derivatives. There was nothing there. You know, there was no Goldman Sachs there knocking on the doors of London Met students trying to kind of wane them in, or you know, get those options. So that career options for those people in that room is not something that's going to be visibly available to them. They have to create it themselves. So what I got into was proprietary trading, where I just knocked on the doors of companies, of people who were backing themselves or were backing small groups of youngsters, and said that, look, I'm willing to put some money down and trade myself. Can you support me or back me? Fortunately, I joined a company called Saxon Financials that backed me and supported me, and, you know, gave me that exposure to traders who knew what they were doing. So I spent a lot of time with a team who were trading oil, and that's how I gained my experience and, you know, got a foot in the door, so to speak. But that would not be there for 99% of the students coming through the London Met route. It's just simply not available. They have to create it themselves. So from the earliest time, it's not, you know, a ladder that you're climbing. You just have to basically
you're knocking on doors. You're sort of trying to get in touch with the people. Do you think it's got easier for people to knock on those doors? Is it easier to access people? I mean, we've got things like LinkedIn now and stuff, but equally there's HR departments who want to go through a process. Do you think they're opening up more to taking people from, let's say, unconventional backgrounds? And even then, yours is relatively conventional. But, you know, people who've not had the opportunity, maybe even to go to university, but say, look, I've got talent, give me a chance. Has it got easier, do you think?
I think so. I think definitely so. It has, because, you know, look, previously when we were probably doing applications, just based on the 8 universities that were up top at the time, you would get filtered out of the application process. So, you know, if you didn't go to one of the red brick unis, then you're pretty much out of the application process. That was something that was in existence back 10, 15 years ago. I don't think that's the case today. I think people are a bit more liberal. But I think also the competition is increased now. So there's more kids out there that need that work. You're competing against older people, and you're competing now against people from all around the world with remote work coming in, and people that can do the job for 10 times cheaper than you. In India or in China or anywhere else, you've got a competition to face that's global now. So, previously, if you wanted to get into creative design, yes, you might go and sit in an office with someone, but now somebody based out in Serbia can easily deliver that service, if not better. So I think that things are definitely harder for kids now than for perhaps when we were growing up. I definitely think that the opportunities, but the scalabilities there for the people who want to put in the work now can achieve more quicker and faster. You've got all the tools that we didn't have. So I guess, yeah.
I mean, do you agree with me? If you're sitting there, you're at a school which hasn't gone down this route. I mean, I personally feel when people ask me, they say, "Oh, I want to be in finance and all the rest of it," I say, look at fintech. And I know you've got lots of connections with technology as well. Would you say to them, rather than conventional jobs, which 10 years ago you might have said hedge funds or private equity, all the rest of it, and people think, oh yeah, banking, whatever. Would you say for them also to expand out and look into financial technology and the technology industries and entrepreneurship as well, as you've done?
100%. I would say that don't think of anything in terms of a job anymore. Just think about how you generate what you want to generate. So if you want to generate, social action, then you don't think that you go for a 9-to-5 job to generate that thing. You just need to figure out a way to get the results. And the same way, if you need to, create economic value, make money in the world, then that's what your goal should be, not to get a 9-to-5 job where you go there to do some work. And then, I think that is a bit of an outdated structure now. Today it's much flatter, and, you can probably, I don't know, there was an author that said something recently, what I read, that, the book that he wrote in 2 weeks made him 15 times more than the book that he wrote, which took him 3 years. And I think that now, is a very real thing. The work that we do in the world is based on the value people give it, not on the amount of hours that we put into it. So I think people need to get away from that thought that, oh, I've done my 9-to-5 today, especially, students or, people coming into the workflow. They need to think that, I need to do whatever it takes to get the result.
Yeah. I think one way I look at it is, 20 odd years ago, 30 years ago, you'd say, keep knocking on the door. Then it became, in the 90s, a bit more aggressive, knock the door down. I think now it's like build your own door if they're not opening it for you. I want to turn to Go Dharmic. Now, you and I are on the committee for City Hindus Network, and we're very proud to have you on our committee and promote the work you've been doing with Go Dharmic. It's phenomenal. Tell us a bit more about that. And I think you've hit the 1 million people fed target, if I'm not mistaken.
We will do soon. We're nearly there.
So tell us a bit more about Go Dharmic. Why do that with all of this else going on in your life that you could be doing? You've got a young family as well. What was the motivating force? Why should people look at that to elevate themselves as well? Look at social causes at the same time when they've got busy lives and they're relatively young and, other things they could be doing.
So for me, look, I was standing on the balcony of my flat, looking out at the buildings at Canary Wharf, and I went to a yoga lesson where I saw a poster of a guy called Krishna Das, and he plays the harmonium and chants Hindu mantras, and it's an amazing sound. But I just saw this poster of him, and then I went onto YouTube and Googled it, and as I was standing outside, I listened to his Hanuman Chalisa, and I didn't really know what Hanuman Chalisa was, or what it was really about, but I listened to it, and it just blew me away. And as I was standing there listening to that Chalisa, I just started crying. It did something to me where I feel that, if you think in your life that certain things that change the direction of the car, where it's going, for me, that was a significant moment where I heard his Chalisa. And whether it was my own emotions or whether it was something in the music that made me feel that way, or his chanting of it, or the verses themselves, something was transformative in that moment that I felt that I made a shift in my thinking. And within the next 2 days, I memorized the whole Chalisa and have been chanting it every day since. You know, it's a very, very beautiful and powerful thing. So, you know, at that moment, I felt that, okay, it's not, something shifted towards, you know, not me not wanting to just produce for myself or to produce for my immediate, you know, family members. Even dogs and cats do that, right? Like they do that just for their own thing, but, you know, to think in a wider way. So to try to make a difference in a wider way. And I think, you know, when I met Krishna Das later, you know, and I said to him, look, this is what happened to me when I first heard your Chalisa. We were sitting in Rishikesh in the mountains, just outside an ashram. And he said to me that, look, that's got nothing to do with me. That happened because it was supposed to happen. And, you know, Neem Karoli Baba, who, you know, I consider my guru, he feels that that's an energetic connection that you have to the tradition or to, you know, the lineage that then opens up for you to serve. And, you know, so then I started to learn a lot more about this Neem Karoli Baba and ashrams in India and spiritual philosophy. And I went and studied some courses at the OCHS that we're both very
The
fond
Oxford
of.
Centre for Hindu Studies, yeah.
The Oxford Centre for Hindu Studies, and I met Shaunaka and Dr. Nicholas Sutton, who's become a very, very close friend of mine, you know, over the years, and we've actually written a couple of books together since then over the last 10 years as well. So, you know,
you've got to mention the names of the. You're fully allowed to plug the books.
well, we don't.
I've got it on Amazon here. In case you don't do it, I know about the power of Dharma.
Okay, yeah. So we basically, the common idea that I found from either Krishna Das and Neem Karoli Baba, as well as studying through the academic route with Nick and the OCHS, I came to the same result. You know, the understanding is that, you know, through our path and our way, through the traditions that we have inherited so fortunately, there is a prayer for love for all beings. There is a love all, feed all. That philosophy of, you know, open-heartedness, care for all, think of others, you know, help the poor, help the suffering. That is the core of our Sanatana Dharma, as I understand it, you know. And in the Mahabharata, you have those kind of verses from people who say ahimsa, satyam, akrodho, dhanam, charity, kindness, and that became the foundational understanding. So when I say go dharmic, I'm actually saying, you know, find the root of not just Hinduism, but the root of all traditions, which is love and compassion for all around us. So.
And as you prove, it's not incompatible with business life. I mean, you only have to look at Bill Gates to know you can be, the second richest man in the world and do good for society. Tell me what you've been doing during the COVID crisis. I think that's very important as well to share that.
So on, around the middle of March, when things started to get a bit difficult here in the UK, we started a phone line and just took in calls from people to find out what the need was. So we put some posters up and said, if you needed some help, call this number. We put WhatsApp post flyers around and put the word out to say, look, we want to help, but we need to figure out exactly what the best thing to do is, and not to, you know, waste resources, and really understand the situation as we were in uncharted territory. And what we got a lot of feedback was that elderly people, specifically from Black and ethnic minority communities, were isolated and perhaps not as plugged into the benefits that, you know, government or councils would be providing. They might not be calling up Age UK for support. They may not be catering so much. So, you know, we started providing meals to anybody who called up and wanted a free meal. And we delivered those meals on a daily basis to their homes. So hundreds of elderly people have received those meals and are still receiving those meals on a daily basis. So it's almost like became a tiffin service around the UK. Then, you know, it was really about reacting to the need, the daily changes that were happening, and then helping to solve those where they came up. Because we had hospices who called us and said, look, we've had to take in 5 COVID patients last week and we don't have any PPE. So we felt that, you know, at the time, everybody's just serving the best they can. We need to get them some PPE. So, you know, although we were focused on meals, we said, look, let's make a purchase, get this PPE in and send it to the hospice. Then we had councils calling us and saying, look, the government's told us 2 days ago that, you know, we have to take all the homeless people off the streets for the first time in, you know, probably the UK's history. we've taken the homeless people off the streets. So vans went round, anybody who was rough sleeping was picked up and taken into accommodation. But councils didn't have the budget to feed them. So they didn't have the money to feed them, so we relied on private donations and delivered meals to all of the centres on a daily basis that the councils were housing all the homeless people. So it was an incredible service like that volunteers were doing to pick up. Well, firstly, it starts with the restaurants. People like Desi Delight, Two Peas, Namaste Watford. There's so many of them. There's Mar Catering in Luton. There's
they were giving things at cost so that you could supply and feed the elderly, the homeless, and so on.
Yeah, I'm going to plug a few more if you don't mind. First, I just say
no, go for it. Quite right too.
Jay's, Memsab, all of these restaurants, Dips Catering, Two Peas, they all produce meals for free for us. So some of them we had to pay a little bit of money to support their costs and structure, because we've got to remember that some of these businesses have lost their entire business overnight. All their catering business is gone, all their clients have disappeared, all their parties, functions, eat-in restaurants all closed. To some of the restaurants we paid a little bit of money to, which they did it in a pro bono way to produce meals, catering companies. But some of them, so beautiful, like if I say Two Peas and Desi Delight in Queensbury, they produced meals for free for us for 3 months, and they did not even take a penny from us, not any even, like we gave them a little bit of supplies, but even the supplies they were reluctantly taking, like food. So some people, there are some real angels out there that have done things because they really felt. Like, for me, it's no different than the Amritsar Gurdwara, like I consider what we're doing a Langar Seva, this is prasad what we're distributing. So for them to do it in that kind of spirit is just incredible, and we've been witness to that, and it's real love. And so by Friday, this Friday, we'll cross 1 million meals globally, which is really touching. And
wow. We should let people know this is being filmed on the 15th of June 2020, and I'm going to make sure I get all those links from you for those, so wherever we post this, we'll make sure we mention all the organizations that you've mentioned as well. It reminds me, we've mentioned Hindus and we've mentioned Sikhs, and reminds me of the story of the widow's mite from Christianity, which is it's those with the least who actually end up giving the most. And we see that again and again in society, that it's those who've got the least to give as a proportion of what they have, they end up giving the most. And I think the restaurants you've mentioned, when, if you've lost your entire livelihood, to still go on and say, no, actually, we've got a kitchen here and we'll do something for the various people. So quite right to mention those. In closing, what are your plans for the future, both professionally in terms of helping others and obviously through Go Dharmic in terms of helping others and elevating them?
Well, in terms of Go Dharmic, what we're trying to do is build a community of people who care. That's the very simple, message, is that, look, if we all have time, I feel that if there's something you want to do, time is never the lack. We can always find time, whether it's, before work or after work or, something. So what we're trying to do is, we're currently at about 3,000 people who are part of this community of Go Dharmic that come together with no other intention than to help others, to serve people, to be compassionate, spread kindness and love. So, the plan for that is to just keep expanding it, keep feeding people, keep serving, and wherever we can, in whichever route. It doesn't have to be through one particular means of feeding people. Education is actually our biggest campaign, where we develop libraries across India. But India, Africa, and Nepal are the 3 locations that we've done it. And we're at 80 schools that have been developed. So, it's just about, I think the world, as the Buddha said, the world is full of suffering, but what is our job? Our duty is to alleviate that suffering. So, as long as we are working in that direction, I feel that, we're doing our bit, and, the world will kind of find ways for that river to grow and to kind of reach the ocean, So there is no one thing. It's just about continuing service, and doing as much as we feel we have the capacity to. And, there's no dogma around it, or there's no thing. If somebody has half an hour a week, it's welcome. If somebody can help feed like somebody has been feeding in rugby 13 meals a week, and said, like, compared to the initiative that we've all done, that is such a small number. They said it was such a small number, but for me, you know, even just feeding 1 or 2 people is still a powerful and significant karmic act that, you know, ingrains a sense of love and compassion on our hearts and minds, and, you know, expands that. From a personal economic perspective, I don't know, Alpesh, you'll probably have to guide me a bit better and tell me which stocks to buy, and then we can, you know, improve it or something. I look, that is not the focus for me, to be honest. This is the focus, and, you know, whatever half an hour or hour I can squeeze into my day to figure out where we take things in that way, then, you know, we have to do that. So that's the truth of the matter is that, you know, 12 or 14 hours a day we'll be working on this, and then, you know, in a couple of hours we'll figure out what to do personally to try and to grow that side.
Well, we're really proud to have you on City Hindus Network and all the work you're doing, and people should go to Dharmic, and I'll make sure wherever we post this video, we've got the various URLs you've mentioned as well on there. I love the fact that your daughter walked past. It reminds me of that BBC interview. It's great with kids. They're just sort of, I love it. I'm going to let you return to looking after the kids, but I just wanted to say again, from all of us, thank you very much for all of
Thank you,
for taking the time.
I just want to say as well to you, there she is as well. And you say hi. She won't say hi. She's very shy.
Hello.
But I want to say thank you to you, Alpesh, as well, for personally donating so much towards GD, and, you know, also that energy that you bring to all of your work. I think we're 100% aligned in our outlook in terms of wanting to help people. That I know the work that you've done, you know, with the widows in India as well, and, you know, the other projects that you've all been involved in. That is exactly what we want to expand and grow. So, you know, however we do that, whether it's GD or could be any platform, to be honest, it's all love, and that's what I want to see expanding in the world.
You're very kind.